the jobs he's creating, and that he just doesn't take that lump of cash and go buy an island because he could go do it, that he has decided to invest back in this community. It is really, really exciting. Now, Andy do a great job in the wheel with information of who our speaker is, so I'm not going to repeat any of the great accomplishments that Randy's done and let you read that at your tables. But what I do want to add is, we know the Bible has a special place for people who take care of orphans, and I am always just wildly impressed by someone. Randy and his bride have 2 children, one of which they adopt. So not only is he an incredibly smart individual who's doing great things for our community, he's absolutely a wonderful human being. So let's give a round of applause for Randy Smith.
Hi there. Thank you, Pat. That's very kind. I'm going to go off script for a little bit before I start. And this is my first time at a Rotary meeting, and you can't help but be impressed by the spirit and the energy in here. But I'm also like a Rotary culture. He was explaining some of that to me just a minute ago, and he said there's these things called scooters. Is anybody in here? Anyway, I want to extend some grace. What you're about to hear from me is mostly what some of you have heard me say before. So, okay, Joan, with your permission, I'm in the timeline for scooters. So if you need to scoot, I will not take that personally. I would also like to thank Brandon for asking me to come here and share with you guys. And I think I'll skip to the punchline of my tangent at the beginning, which is we are a 5-person company, and only 4 of us come to work. And so we are really about the task at hand. And honestly, in all candor, I try to avoid speaking for my sake and yours as often as possible. But when Brandon explained to me what Rotary is about, this is one that I felt strongly like I would love to come and share with you. And as Pat mentioned, you don't have to spend very much time around me to hear me talk about my kids. And so these are my boys. Duncan is my 7-year-old, and Benjamin is my 2-year-old. And very few things are rigid in my life. One is that I will not meet with you before 9 a.m. for any reason on any weekday ever. I take my kids to school. And on the way to school, Duncan and I, every day we go over the Smith family motto. And now he's got it down. He started 1st grade on Monday. But we did it last year for kindergarten. And in our home, it's I'm third. So if any of you are familiar with Kanakuk or have ever been, I'm third is God first, others second, I'm third. And that's just, look, if we can get that right in the Smith household, everything else is great. You also can't spend very much time, I think, around Graham or me without us hearing us say some version of the following, which is what we really want to do is be a part of building a city that our kids will want to come home to. And so that's why I wanted to lead with this picture. This is why we do what we do. And I think the servant's heart that is abundant in this room is really what drives us to do what we do. So I think a lot of times, a lot of cities or a lot of publications use the word service jobs as sort of like a passive-aggressive, undercut at something. And we just don't buy that. I mean, I think if you think about the great corporate institutions in San Antonio, you have Frostbank, USAA, Rackspace, Medtron. I know I'm leaving some off, but these are all service companies. And I think that those companies and the people like you that give what you give to Rotary are really San Antonio's secret weapon to help us create that city that our kids want to come home to. Because I bet there's 1,000 stories in here from all of you whose kids left San Antonio and didn't come back. Or I bet you have a friend that applies to. Those stories are countless, and that's part of what we want to be a part of changing. Okay, so that's my tangent. And so, by the way, one last time for scooters, because this is where we get into the stuff. Okay, we started out like Pat said, about 5 years ago. And there's a variation on helping to build a city that I want to come home to. There's a number of phrases that we use that all kind of mean the same thing. A changeable one is to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem where the next large-scale technology company can happen. I believe that is interchangeable with my first mission statement. And the way we go about it is threefold. So we have a philanthropic effort, which is Graham's foundation, which is called the 80/20 Foundation. It gives very targeted to 3 specific areas. We have my little company, West and Urban. We are tasked with the most sort of mundane, germane end of it, which is just creating the built environment for all these things to happen in. And then the most important one is Geekdom. So Geekdom is the main event. If you haven't been, I invite you to come, take a tour, become a member. But we believe that the next large-scale technology company will be born in Geekdom or has already been born in Geekdom. So when we set about to build this city that we want our kids to come back to, we knew that we were always going to be a small company, and we knew that we wanted to be catalytic more than anything. We were also at a point in time where our customers at Rackspace were pulling us from being a managed hosting company to a cloud computing company. And I will spare you the differentiation between the two. But what you need to know is you need very disparate types of people to build those 2 companies. And so to put it in my world, Rackspace, the managed hosting company, we had thousands of these people that we also sort first for the servant's heart. We always say, no brilliant jerks. If you have a servant's heart, we can teach you the tech. But you ought to think of them, I see a lot of real estate people in the room, you ought to think of them as the plumbers of the internet, okay? And in my world, that's the highest praise, right? When you need a plumber, you need a plumber. You don't ever just kind of want a plumber. You need a plumber. And those are miraculous for a lot of people. And as the market pulled us to cloud computing, all of a sudden, we needed the architects of the internet. Those are 2 different types of people. Now, you still need a lot of plumbers because the cloud, if you will, breaks all the time. It's very manual, it's very human intensive. But you also need a lot of architects. And that's a software developer, for those of you that know it. And we were in a talent battle and we were losing handily. I would suggest to you that we're still in the thick of that battle and will be for a long time. But we realized that the ones that we were winning, the talent that we were able to attract or retain, they were all clustering in urban spaces. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about districts and what we're doing to help build the city that all of our kids want to come home to. We looked around San Antonio's urban spaces, and there's really 3. And if any of you have ever lived in a city other than San Antonio that's a big city, you'll know that they're kind of really quasi-urban. I don't think many other cities would call the area around the Pearl urban, or the area around Southtown urban. But in San Antonio, that passes for urban. And so we have really 3 nodes. We have River North, or the area around Pearl. We have downtown, or the urban core, and we have Southtown. And if you'll flash back, we were always going to be a small company, and we just want to be catalytic. And so River North did not need a catalyst. River North has the greatest catalyst urban real estate's ever seen in San Antonio. His name is Kit Goldberry, and we weren't going to be very helpful. Southtown is different. It's more of I sort of think of Southtown as like an army of 15 to 20 entrepreneurs, but already being catalytic. And even in 2012, we didn't think that we would really be an accelerant there. But the urban core was where we thought we could make the biggest difference. And so the concept of districts in urbanism are very important. Districts give a place a sense of identity. They give people sort of this background notion of why they're there, and they aggregate like people with similar energies. So if you think about downtown, it's my suggestion that we already have districts, we just don't call them that. And so we have a long-standing tradition in my family of describing things like a clock. And so I'm going to describe downtown to you like a clock. So if you go, that's really where art and culture happens downtown. It's the Tobin, it's Southwest School of Art, which is one of our most underrated gyms in San Antonio. It's the Radius Center, which is kind of like a little geekdom for nonprofit performing arts. And if you really stretch your imagination, you can say that the art museum is in this district. Now, art and culture happens in lots of places in San Antonio, but downtown, that's really the art and culture district. If you go from 3 to 6, this is why my wife doesn't like to come downtown. This district, cheap drinks and name tags. And this is the tourism industry of our downtown, and I love it. I say that with all sincerity. It is an economic engine that fires so many things for us downtown. But I don't think anyone in here tonight's date night for myself and my wife, and she is not going to say, let's go to the Riverwalk. And I don't think any of you on date nights are going to say, let's go to the Riverwalk. This is the portion of downtown that is predominantly for visitors, and we think it's a wonderful thing. But it's not really built for locals. From 6 to 9 is sort of where the civic function of our downtown happens. County courthouse, your federal courthouse, jail in there. It's kind of like where government happens. And then if you pivot around from 9 to noon, it's the parking district. A sea of parking lots. We immediately identified that as our best shot in California. And so I'll just sidestep for a while and say there are a lot of cities going through this same thing. There is a nationwide inversion of demographics back into the urban core. There's a great book called The Great Inversion if you're a reader. But I think it's far more art than science. So anyone that says you need at least X acres to revitalize a downtown is just lying to you. It is so highly subjective. If as a group we all had 5 acres in Lower Manhattan, we could change Lower Manhattan forever. If you have 5 acres in downtown San Antonio, you're not going to make much of it. It is all relative to the city that you are in. And so, why 9 to noon? Why the parking district? Whatever enough is, and I'm kind of a small town kid, so let's just say 15 acres because that's a lot of space. You know, if I wanted to assemble 15 acres in the art and culture district, I think I could do it. I think I could. It would. We are not. I've said this all the time, and I better be careful because it might happen someday. But I don't think you're ever going to see Graham stand up in front of an audience with an oversized check. That is just not our speed. We are not shock and awe with a purchase price. We're vision builders, and we're very disciplined in our transactions. And so I think I could build vision in noon to 3, and we sort of thought that would take us around 10 years. If you wanted to assemble 15 acres from 3 to 6 in the land of cheap drinks and you can never do that. You can, unless you're hemisphere, you can never assemble 15 acres in there. I don't think. Everyone's convinced that the W Hotel is coming to their parcel. So, if you wanted to do it from 6 to 9, I think you could do it again, sort of similar to the art and culture district. But from 9 to noon in our little district, between 4 property owners, there were 40 acres under control. And we thought, man, even we can build vision with a couple of folks. And we were one of the 4 already. So we identified that as our best shot to be catalytic. And then, we are not out to be trendsetters in any respect. We have a very simple strategy, and that is to bolt our private investments onto the chassis created by the public investments. And right now, in 9 to noon, there is a staggering amount of public investment happening. So you'll see in a minute that our strategy has really been to aggregate the pieces where we think we can make a difference around those public investments. And so here's what we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 or 5 years. Parcels in blue are dark blue, sorry, they're all blue. Parcels in dark blue are what we've acquired, and parcels in blue are what we will acquire when we deliver the new Frost Bank headquarters. So we're sitting around 20 acres right now. I'm optimistic that will grow meaningfully, but we view this as sort of our 10-year development pipeline to build a district downtown. And I want to go back to my earlier point, which is geekdom is really the main event here. Okay, we want to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem because we believe that young companies create jobs, not big companies or small companies, it's young companies. And by young companies, I don't mean the age of the employees, I mean the age of the company. And then we also think that it's that type of ecosystem that the next wave of talent wants to be a part of and really call home in a literal sense. In 2013, we bought the Rand building from Frostbank. Since 1984, a Frostbank is full of Frostbankers. Frost stayed a couple years, and we really got our hands on it in spring of 15. And so it just turns out that the Rand building is going to be the heartbeat of this tech ecosystem that we're building. Geekdom itself occupies a healthy chunk of the building. Open Cloud Academy is Rackspace's sort of external training to create those plumbers. This building cranks out plumbers, to go back to my earlier. We couldn't be any more excited that Google picked our building to call home. And then a smattering of smaller startups and tech companies. The one I haven't added on here is if any of you like Rosella coffee, I will buy you a Rosella coffee if you come see me. It'll be on the first level. I think we'll be open around January or February. This is kind of the earliest of, you can see some of the 1984 still left on that building. And then this is our building today. We took a lot of, this was a department store, by the way. You will date yourself if you raise your hand. Who shopped at Wolf and Marks? Yeah. This was a Wolf and Marks department store. And today it's full of geeks. And you can see from this picture, there isn't really an average geek. We're all geeks about something. I'm a geek about real estate and parks. The people in this picture are all geeks in their own right. I think the tendency is when I say geek to sort of, for you to picture, like a young man in his early 20s in his parents' garage, like working on with lights off, working on a computer, and it's just not, that's not the case at all. I think you'd be surprised if you come to Geekdom and see who our geeks really are. But this building filled up far faster than we would have ever imagined. We did not expect Google to come in and basically say, we'll have the rest of it. I think what we see at the heart of our district is sort of three historic assets that, that for the most part, create a young company sort of employer-employee groundswell. So when this building filled up, we decided, man, we need another one. And the Milan is a logical fit for us. It's adjacent to the Weston Center and a block north of the Rand building. It is one of my favorite buildings downtown. Steeped in history. You can't see it, but what I always like to show people is the Milan is very historic. It was the first air-conditioned high-rise in the United States. Only they did not call it air conditioning. They had this great marketing term for it. It was called manufactured weather. Trust me, I said manufactured. And so we intend to reuse that heavily in our marketing. What we will do with the Milan building, that'll be the first building where we sort of do a mashup of uses. We intend to have around 140 residential units in there and to keep around 100,000 square feet of office space. So the same treatment that we gave to the Rand, which we think was well deserved, the Milan will get in spades. And we could not be any more excited about that. The next one we bought was called the Savoy Hotel. And I always like to point out that this was like, I think this picture was taken around, but I think it might be one of the earliest examples of Photoshop. That is so clearly a fake flag up how that happened. But I want to give you an example of a sort of turn-of-the-century marketing slogan that we will not use. Okay, so do you see it? The Hotel Savoy is a place for your wife, mother, or sister. We're not going to go with that one. But this is a beautiful building. And sort of story to the Rand. We've leased it all, and we haven't started work on it. So the demand for this type of office space in the core is validating our thesis. And so then I'd like to tell you about sort of the public-private partnership that we've entered into that will really set the table for this district. It is how we come by the light blue parcels that you saw on our map. this was born of a very simple idea, which was, wouldn't it be nice if you looked at those 4 owners and their parcels, the ones that we really wanted belong to Frost Bank. And it was, wouldn't it be nice if we could develop Frost Bank's surface parking lots into wonderful places to call home? And that is a great idea in a vacuum, but if you do so at the expense of the iconic downtown business presence, Frost, by the time we finish this tower, Frost will have been downtown for 150 years. So if we acquired all their parking lots and they skedaddled, that was going to be very foolish. And so we went to Frost with this idea, hey, if we built you a new iconic headquarters with the biggest parking garage you've ever seen, would you sell us all your real estate? And you know, I think they sort of gave us a good game on the behind and showed us the door. We didn't think we had a chance. We left that meeting thinking we better go to plan B. And about a month later, Frost called back and said, hey, if not us, who, and if not now, when, we're going to do it with you. And it was the most overt symbol of partnership that I could possibly imagine. And you should picture Graham and I pouring champagne on each other in slow motion. And then they said, but there's a catch, which there's always a catch. He said, we need you to buy our own building. And we said, well, that's not for us. We've got all the off, you know, what would we do with it? And so we set about to find a user for that building. And I think that we were in this moment in time that was very unique. And it took our former mayor, Juan Castro, about 5 seconds to figure out that this was a great thing for the city. And it was his bold leadership and willingness to tackle something like that that was then subsequently carried through by Ivy that got us to where we are. So I'm going to tell you, a lot of people wonder how it works. I'm going to tell you how it works. Okay, so there's 3 parties. My Adobe skills are lacking. That is meant to be the city of San Antonio. That's clearly Frost Bank, and this is our little group. So, as between the city and Frost, it's very simple. Frost conveys to the city its existing headquarters, and the city pays it. So that is the simplest leg of this transaction. As between the city and West Irving, we receive the city's sort of spare parts downtown, if you will. A number of development incentives, none for the tower itself. And our commitment back is 265,000 units in the core. I feel like I'm amongst friends, so just between us chickens, I think we will exceed that by a multiple. We are, well, in the mile of Malone, I think we'll hit 140. And then as between Frost and Weston Urban, Frost gives us a long-term lease on a new tower and a balance of its downtown real estate portfolio, and we deliver a new headquarters. Here's what we know about this building. We are progressing rapidly. We know it's the downtown in 3 decades. Our architecture team is sort of, they're not the type of architecture firm you would typically find associated with San Antonio. We felt it was very important to work with a firm of this caliber to do something unexpected. We know it'll be Frost headquarters. We know the size of the leases. The tower site, it'll be built on, if you motorbank with Frost, which I don't know who motorbanks anymore, but I'm sure there are folks that motorbank. It's on the motorbank site downtown. It's a nice, big, beautiful site. Frost 40 years ago planted some oak trees there that are just majestic for an urban setting. We have a development partner, so to my earlier point, the 4 of us were never going to pull this off, nor did we really desire to. So we seek best-in-class partners across all of our activities, and our development partner is a company out of Dallas called KDC. Now, a year into this, I could not be more happy with that partnership. And we think we know how beautiful it is. Look, we think that Pele absolutely delivered on the promise. We're very fond. So things we don't know who else will be in the building. We started our sort of third-party leasing effort in earnest last week. So it's kind of an exciting time to see who else is going to want to be a part of something like this. And things that we think we might know, I think we're going to start construction in December, and we think that it takes us 2 years, but time I read a story in the paper about like a sword tip at the Alamo or something like that, you take a little bit of pause. This sits at a very historic site. Historically, the San Pedro Creek was our city's historic waterway, and Houston Street's kind of always been Houston Street, and that's where the place sits. And so, barring any sword tips or cannonballs or finding the original Alamo or anything like that, we think that we'll break ground. And so, look, with that is, in a very small nutshell, the things that we've been up to for the last 5 years. And if anyone, do we have time for a little Q&A? So if there's any Q&A, I'm happy to have banter. Yes, ma'am.
In the prospect, there's a wonderful post office. I know a lot of people know, but it's really great. It's always there. Has the government decided to do something to enhance that and maintain that type of service?
So the question was, in the existing Frost Bank, there's a wonderful post office, and I office in the Rand building, and I go through the tower, and I use that post office. You're right, it is wonderful. So no one has reached out to us, but the city will move all 1,200 of its employees into that building. That will become sort of City of San Antonio World Headquarters, and I'd be shocked if they don't keep that post office. Yes, ma'am.
When will the condos at the mile be completed, and how much will they cost?
Okay, so the question was, when will the condos at the Mile be done, and how much will they cost? Right now, just for a point of clarity, right now, in my estimation, downtown is a little bit, we're a little bit away from being ready for a for-sale product. So what we deliver at the Mile will initially be for rent. We'll set up all of our multifamily projects to be converted if we want. So for now, we won't be able to buy one. We think that what I've been telling the team is, I think someone will celebrate Christmas in their model apartment in 2017. So I think sort of the end of 2017. Wow. Yes, sir.
The one-stop center, will it move into Frost Tower as well?
The question was, will the one-stop center move into Frost Tower as well? Are you talking about the one at South Alamo in Flores? I haven't heard the city say anything about that, but I would be shocked. I think they intend to keep that there. I noticed today I was down for a meeting, and they're building a new parking lot across the street, so I'd be shocked if they did that. Yes, sir.
Randy, are we going to have AAA or AA baseball there?
The question is, are we going to have AAA or AA baseball downtown? And so I'll give you a sort of bit of a contrarian answer, which won't earn me any brownie points with anyone. But would you raise your hand in the room if you consider yourself a true baseball fan? Okay. All of you know that the better product by far is AA baseball. If there's a prospect you want to go see, he is likely playing AA baseball right now. Now, that is not a politically popular stance. I think there's this notion that, much like people say, well, your tower could be a little taller. I think it's like, okay, bigger for being big. I think it's sort of the same thing with baseball. But I don't know. And I would say then from a Weston urban perspective, I'll buy any of you a steak dinner if Graham Weston can tell you how many baseball players take the field. Corporately, sports is not in our DNA. I'm a sports nut. So on a personal level, I am very passionate about downtown baseball. From a Western urban perspective, we're not. But let me tell you what we are passionate about. 7,000 people downtown spending money 70 nights a year. So if you are to say, hey, we can have 7,000 people downtown having a great time 70 nights a year, I really don't care what it is they're doing on the back half of that sentence. We think it's a good thing. Yes, ma'am.
As a Geekdom member.
Are you a Geekdom member?
I am.
Thank you.
I might be able to Geekdom member.
No.
Yeah, can we have Geekdom members stand up?
Yeah. There are Geekdom members. I know what it's like down there, and I know I've been watching the development over the last 10 years. this downtown area. Yet when I talk to my friends and I read about downtown, a lot of people are still intimidated about going downtown. And I think two major factors that are at play here are not only how do I get there to the place I want to go, but parking and sidewalks. Does the government aspect of this triumvirate, or do they have any plans to improve the parking and the sidewalks so that San Antonians actually go downtown?
So
You know about that?
no, that is a perfect question. We try to overcome those same obstacles every day. I've started to say though, if you think parking is bad downtown, try to get a parking spot at the Pearl at lunch. Like, that's bad parking. But it's just a sign of it's a sign of vibrancy, and it means a lot of people run there, and we think it's a great thing. From a municipal perspective, we are at if you're in my line of work and the mayor of your city is a Ivy League trained urban planner, I mean, you have like died and gone to heaven. This is a good thing. And then I think it trickles down through the city manager's office. So Cheryl Scully and Lori Houston, I know people, peers of mine in other cities, who would not know what to do with a city as cooperative as ours. It is wonderful, and I do think that they get at an organizational level that walkability is the #1 criteria that we need to check. So just specifically speaking in our district, over the next 18 months, you'll see Main and Soledad go back to 2 ways. You'll see them shrink, and you'll see them more heavily landscaped. Same thing along Commerce. So you're starting to see these bond projects place an emphasis on walkability. And from my perspective, we think that's a really good thing. Parking is the tricky one. I do think there are case studies around the U.S. where shared parking is beginning to work, and that is certainly the way we will tackle the balance between residential and office. So, for example, are you going back to the Rand building today?
I was thinking about it.
The parking's there?
I seriously not.
But if you drove and you drive back, our garage is very full right now. But if you look 2 blocks west at the Vistana, Mr. Cross's garage is entirely empty. And then flip-flop that. At 6 p.m. tonight, the Vistana's garage will be jam-packed, and ours will be a ghost town. So we are sort of whole hog dedicated to mastering this shared parking thing. And I do know the city has a parking fund that they absolutely intend to deploy. But when you go visit other great cities, I think we have an overabundance of parking. I think it's a cultural shift that's going to take a decade.
What a fabulous presentation. If there was anybody in this room that didn't learn something new, then you've been seeing too much of Randy Smith. Who's made a donation in your name.